It was a crisp Saturday morning in late spring when the trouble began. I was seated on my porch, sipping coffee and watching the sun cast its golden rays across my 5-acre property on the outskirts of town. I had purchased this land a few years prior for the tranquility it provided, a modest home with a vast open field behind it, where I could work on my old pickup truck or simply savor the silence. It wasn't luxurious, but it was mine, and I had always assumed that would be the end of the matter. That assumption held until Patricia arrived. I heard her before I saw her. The sharp, deliberate clack of heels on my gravel driveway pierced the stillness. Squinting into the distance, I spotted her, Patricia, the self-proclaimed overseer of our neighborhood's loosely organized homeowners association, HOA. She strode toward me in an immaculate white tracksuit, her brunette bob swaying with each step, gripping a clipboard as though it were her scepter of authority. I'd encountered her before minor grievances about my weathered mailbox or my lawn being slightly overgrown, but the glint in her eye that morning signaled she had a grander scheme in mind. "Good morning, Patricia," I said, maintaining a polite tone as she approached the porch. "What brings you here so early?" "Good morning," she responded, her voice laced with an artificial sweetness that grated on my nerves. "I'm here regarding a community matter. We've been discussing it at the HOA meetings, the ones you never attend, and we've concluded that your land would be ideal for a small project." I set my mug on the railing, already steeling myself. "My land? What sort of project?" "Community yoga," she declared, as if it were the most logical idea imaginable. "We need an open space where the neighborhood can gather, stretch, and find some inner peace. That field out back is just sitting there, unused. It's practically begging for a meaningful purpose." I nearly choked on the sip I'd just taken. Begging for a purpose? "Patricia, that's my property. I'm not operating a public park." She waved a hand dismissively, as if my objection were a minor annoyance. "Oh, don't be so self-centered. This is for the greater good. Think of the children, the elderly. Everyone deserves a place to relax. Besides, it's not as though you're doing anything with it. It's just grass." "Grass I paid for," I retorted, my patience beginning to wear thin. "Grass I mow. Grass I own." Her smile tightened, but she pressed forward, undaunted. "Well, we've already voted on it. The HOA agrees this is the best location. We'll need you to clear out any clutter, those old tires, that rusty truck, and we'll begin next weekend. I've arranged for a landscaper to install a small Zen garden as well." "You're welcome." I stared at her, stunned, as the absurdity sank in. "You voted on my land without consulting me?" "It's a community decision," she replied, tapping her clipboard with a neatly manicured nail. "You'll receive formal notice by mail, but I wanted to give you a heads up. It's happening, so you might as well cooperate." With that, she pivoted and marched back down the driveway, leaving me standing there, coffee now cold, questioning whether I'd imagined the entire exchange. I wasn't even a member of the HOA. My property lay just beyond their jurisdiction, a detail she either overlooked or ignored. But that was Patricia in a nutshell. She saw something she wanted and expected reality to conform to her desires. For the rest of the day, I couldn't shake the encounter. I paced the house, replayed her words, and even retrieved my property deed to confirm the boundaries. As expected, every inch of that field was mine, free of HOA covenants, easements, or any shared obligations. She had no legal standing, only audacity. Yet I knew her kind. She'd return the following weekend with yoga mats and her landscaper, acting as though she owned the place, likely with neighbors in tow to pressure me if I resisted. I could have contacted a lawyer or posted a no trespassing sign and hoped she'd back off. But as I gazed out at my field, a bolder plan took shape. If Patricia wanted a spectacle, I'd give her in my terms. By Monday, I'd resolved to show her what this land could truly become. I wouldn't let her transform my haven into a pastel-hued meditation retreat. Instead, I'd go bigger, louder, and far messier. I'd host a monster truck rally. I'm no event organizer, just a man with a decent-sized field and a stubborn streak to match. I've always admired monster trucks, those roaring, tire-crushing machines that defy time and reason. As a child, I'd attended a few rallies, bouncing in the stands as engines thundered and dirt soared. I still had a friend, Tom, who ran a small auto shop and knew everyone in the local car community. If anyone could make this happen, it was him. That afternoon, I called him, leaning against my kitchen counter with the phone to my ear. "Hey, Tom, Do you still know those guys with the monster trucks? He chuckled, a gravelly sound that hinted at his interest. Yeah. Why? You finally upgrading that old Chevy of yours? No, I said, grinning despite myself. I've got something wilder in mind. How hard would it be to get a few trucks out here for a show? A pause followed. A show? Like a rally on your land? Exactly. Next Saturday. I've got a score to settle. I recounted the saga of Patricia, her yoga demands, her clipboard, her smug "you're welcome," and Tom needed no further persuasion. He relished any chance to defy overreach, and this was right in his wheelhouse. Give me a day, he said. I'll make some calls. By Tuesday night, he delivered beyond my expectations. He'd secured 3 drivers willing to bring their trucks, Thunder Beast, Dirt Dragon, and a rig called Reaper's Wrath. They weren't top-tier professionals, but their vehicles were authentic, towering tires, custom paint, and engines that could shake the earth. All they requested was fuel, money, and an audience. I told Tom to spread the word, friends, neighbors, anyone who'd come. I didn't want a subdued event. I wanted noise, chaos, and a clear rebuke to Patricia's Weishound. The next few days were a flurry of preparation. I rented portable bleachers from a local event company, borrowed traffic cones from Tom to outline a rough track, and assembled a makeshift announcer's stand using my old CB radio and a megaphone I dug out of the garage. I skipped permits. None were required on private property but kept it discreet, labeling it a private party to avoid scrutiny. By Friday, the town was abuzz. Half the neighborhood was talking about the truck thing at Mark's place, and I hadn't even sent in white irons. My cousin, Emily, offered to manage a concession stand with hot dogs and sodas, and the momentum grew. This was shaping up to be unforgettable. Patricia, meanwhile, remained oblivious. I saw her white SUV drive by midweek, likely surveying her yoga site, but she didn't stop. She had no inkling of what awaited her, which made it all the more satisfying. Saturday dawned bright and loud. I awoke to the rumble of engines as the monster trucks arrived, their trailers rolling down my driveway like a procession of titans. Thunder Beast was a massive blue rig with lightning bolts emblazoned on the sides. Dirt Dragon bore the scars of its last outing, caked in mud, while Reaper's Wrath featured a skeletal figure wielding a scythe across its hood. The drivers Jake, Sam, and a guy called Buck were a rugged bunch, but their grins stretched wide as they stepped out and assessed the field. This is perfect, Jake said, kicking a tire as tall as my chest. Flat, wide, plenty of room to jump. You sure you're okay with us tearing it up? Tear away, I replied, arms crossed and a smirk on my face. Just make it loud. By noon, the crowd began REVYing. Tom had worked wonders. Pickup trucks and SUVs lined the road. Kids darted around with toy trucks, and a few folks unpacked coolers of beer. The bleachers filled quickly, and soon over 100 people were milling about, snapping photos of the trucks and guessing what was coming. Emily was swamped at the concession stand, dispensing hot dogs at a frantic pace, and the air hummed with anticipation. I climbed onto my announcer's stand, megaphone in hand, ready to start the show. Then, right on cue, Patricia appeared. I spotted her white SUV pulling in just as Sam revved Dirt Dragon for a warm-up lap, the engine's roar bratting the ground. She stepped out, yoga mat under her arm, accompanied by a small group of HOA alias middle-aged women in coordinated pastel leggings, clutching reusable water bottles like they were headed to a spa. Her expression shifted from smug to baffled to enraged in mere seconds as she absorbed the scene. The trucks, the crowd, the sheer pandemonium. What is this? She demanded, storming toward me with her entourage in tow. Her voice sliced through the engine noise, drawing a few curious glances. I lifted the megaphone not because I needed it, but because it felt fitting. Morning, Patricia, I announced, my voice echoing across the field. Welcome to my private event. Thought I'd put this land to good use, just like you suggested. This is outrageous, she shrieked, hands on her hips. We had plans for this space, yoga, community wellness. You can't just... Actually, I can, I interrupted, lowering the megaphone but keeping my tone steady. This is my property, Patricia. You don't get to vote on it. No HOA rules apply here. I checked. Her mouth opened, closed, then opened again, floundering for words. This is a disgrace. The noise, the mess. Think of the neighborhood. Oh, the neighborhood's low-vying it, I said, gesturing to the cheering crowd as Jake fired up Thunder Beast, sending a cloud of exhaust skyward. See for yourself. She whirled around, taking in the sea of smiling faces, kids wav-wying from the bleachers, and the palpable excitement. Her allies shuffled awkwardly, unsure whether to support her or retreat. Patricia's face flushed a deep crimson, and for a moment, I thought she might combust. But then she surprised me. She turned, marched back to her SUV yoga mat still in hand, her group scrambling after her. The engine roared to life, and she sped off, gravel flying in her wake. The crowd erupted in applause, and I couldn't suppress a laugh. "All right, folks," I called through the megaphone. "Let's get this party started." The rally was a triumph. Thunderbeast flattened an old junker I'd sourced from the scrapyard. Dirt Dragon soared off a ramp Tom had helped me construct, and Reaper's Wrath spun donuts that turned the field into a glorious mud pit. The crowd went wild, kids squealed with glee, and even the adults joined in, chanting the trucks' names like they were at a stadium concert. Emily sold out of hot dogs by mid-afternoon, and the drivers lingered afterward, posing for photos and letting kids climb into the cabs. It was loud, chaotic, and the antithesis of Patricia's Yoga VY shout. By dusk, the crowd had dwindled, the trucks had departed, and I stood alone in my ravaged field, beer in hand, feeling deeply content. The grass was ruined, but it would recover. What mattered was that I'd held my ground literally and turned Patricia's overreach into a victory for myself and everyone who'd attended. A few days later, I heard through the grapevine that Patricia had convened an emergency HOA meeting to decry the rally. It backfired. Too many neighbors had been there, cheering and eating hot dogs, and they shut her down swiftly. She never returned to my property, not with her clipboard, her yoga mats, or anything else. My land remained mine, and the message was unmistakable. If she pushed me, I'd push back harder. The following weekend, as I sat on my porch sipping coffee and gazing at the truck-torn field, I couldn't help but smile. It wasn't pristine anymore, but it was a testament to resiliency, a reminder that some battles are worth fighting, and sometimes the best way to say no is with a few thousand horsepower and a lot of noise.